I'm a bit quiet. Let me do that again. Okay, we sound good. Good evening. Championship fights are tight. We're about to see what kind of math we will have to be doing heading into the final round. Who's going to be close enough for a shot at the championship in their respective class? Who is going to be just out of sight? We do have a few disruptors joining in tonight. Leclerc, currently top of the board in AM. There is a very tight championship in the AM field between Tycho Peth and Manelli. Actually, Nate has jumped up into P2 in that fight. Technically, it is a three-way fight in the AM field between Manelli, Tycho Peth, Nate, and Schwartz. Sierra could find a way into that fight as well with a good result tonight. Anything can happen. Potentially that AM championship going 5 ways heading into the final round next week. In the pros, it's a bit wider berth between the top two, but still not out of the woods. Aramich definitely needs to have a much better result tonight than his competitor in Prieto. Currently, Aramich in the Aston Martin, 23.512, top of the board. About halfway through this free practice session. And where is Prieto? Currently in P9 and back in the Honda for this round. Has been loyal to the Honda. And Aramich loyal to the Aston Martin throughout this season. Boris, the teammate in the Ferrari. Will we see any team orders, teamwork between the two Animus Racing teammates? They've been very, very close to each other all throughout the season in both qualifying and finishing positions. Aramich with Trixit, slightly different story. Aramich typically outscoring the teammate, which has put Aramich in that position to potentially have a chance at the championship next weekend, or next week. Boris now with a 23.1 in the Ferrari, dropping that time just over 0.3 of a second. Finale next week will be at Paul Ricard, and yes, we will be having a night race tonight. Here at Brands Hatch does make things a bit harder to see. Not too many lights around the track. Very much going to be reliant on headlights. And there is not much to use for reference here at night. You kind of just have to know where you're going. Not too long of a circuit here at Brands Hatch, but it is still very tricky finding all of your reference points. Down through Dingledale and then into the Sheen curve, throwing the car over the dirt on the inside before you come into Sterling's. We fly back up the hill with a long right-hander. Very hard to get it set up just right, but when you nail it, you carry a ton of time as we go across the line. Prieto now up to P2, just behind the teammate in terms of lap time. And although it is practice showing good pace, Aramich now dropped down all the way to P4, right beside the Team BDK Mod teammate. Gooseslayer in the BMW up to P3. Tycho Peth showing a pace yet again. Remember that AM fight being headed by Tycho Peth, Manelli, and Nate. Be looking for those three. Where they finish tonight, a big incident from either driver could really disrupt their AM championship hopes. really wanting to get promoted to pro. And even if they may be getting promoted to pro on pace, you want to take the championship with you. You don't want to just move up into the higher class without that big old trophy to bring with you. Up through Clark's goes Tychopath, and who is that right behind? Peeling into the pit lane though, and that's a bit of a hard run into the pit lane. I can tell pit stop practice definitely going to be a big factor, especially here during the nighttime hours. The race will be held during the nighttime hours, so it's going to be a bit more crucial to try and get those reference points knocked down in place. Before we get into the race, I think that is Trixit behind, going a bit too wide. Coming out of Surtees, 2 tires on the grass, unsettled the car, almost shot across to the left-hand side of the track, but ended up holding on to it. And Ouroboros actually peeled off just before Westfield there. Many of our top runners going into the pit lane, making some final adjustments to the setup before they get ready for qualifying. It is going to be a 20-minute split qualifying like we have had all throughout this season. "10 minutes for our AM drivers, followed by 10 minutes for our pro drivers. And there is definitely a show to be had. Arguably the best part of the night is that qualifying, and especially as the stakes get a bit higher later on into the season, we very much have a 5-way fight for that AM championship title. We'll see how that all shakes out at the end of the night tonight. And in the pro field, Prieto versus Aramich. Prieto not going back out. Aramich back out for one more lap. Likely has that 3/10 in his pocket. We've seen Aramich on pole more than one time this season. I think he does have a blinker on. Yes, he does. But Aramich out for one more lap to try and scrape together a bit more time. Maybe it's not going to be on this lap. Maybe it will be on the next one if he's got it. Tricks it back out as well. Prieto still in the pit lane. Ouroboros back out. Griffith up to P7. Phoenix Gecko P9. 2 of our newer drivers to GoFAST Racing. Phoenix, I believe, our newest driver to GoFAST Racing, just joining us a couple races ago, and definitely showing some pace. Able to put it close to the front row, if not on the front row, in pro qualifying, and currently sitting just inside the top 10 as we get ready to bring it into free practice. Slayer still in the pit lane, very, very wide from Ouroboros. That is going to invalidate the lap. We'll see if he has enough time to get back to the pit lane. Likely not going to, and will not. Is he going to park it and pull over, go back to the pit lane? I believe he is. Aramich just coming into Surtees. This will be his final flying lap in free practice. Flat out, who is that behind? Is that Ricky Bobby in the Porsche? Yes, it is. Right behind Aramich as they head down Pilgrim's Drop. Aramich, who is currently P4, trying to find a bit more time, maybe just trying to see if he's got it in his pocket. Does not necessarily want to show his hand. Salinas comes across the line, P6 at the end of free practice. Slapshot, P9, knocking Phoenix Gecko down to P10. But it's free practice, doesn't necessarily mean too much. We'll see if Aramich is still valid after running wide at Sterling's there, coming up into Clark's. Is it going to be a practice pit entry? Yes, it is. Hard on the brakes. Very, very narrow pit entry and a very short pit entry as well, but it's clean for Aramich. Do have a few more drivers to come across the line. Peach in the Porsche. Up and across the line goes P4. Actually knocks Aramich down a position. Ketu in the NSX going across the line for the final time up to P12. Car number 71 of Your Mom in the McLaren stays P14, likely did not want to show his hand with the lap time. And TWN Scroll likely will be one of our last to cross the line. I think this may be what kicks us over to qualifying, and yes, it is. So now our AM field will get rolling. The track is theirs and only theirs. We'll see who goes out first. And is that Nate in the Mustang going to be first out? I believe it is. And yes, Nate, first out, has the track position at the front of the field as we get started with our AM qualifying. Things a bit different here in the dark. The track is nice and cool. The tires are going to be cooler. It will take some time to get those tires warmed up and optimal for a flying lap for qualifying. See a bit of tire warming there from Nate, trying to get some warmth built in those tires, weaving them side to side, trying to bring up the front tire temperatures. Down through Dingledale and towards Sheen. Nate will bring us to the start of this AM qualifying session. Up the long right-hander of Clark curve. Roaring up to the line as this should officially start AM qualifying. Nate, the first driver in AM, out for a flying lap. Down Paddock Hill Bend, trying to maximize that track position, and then into Druids. A tight hairpin before we come down to Graham Hill. Nice and tidy on the inside, floating the car wide to the outside. A bit of kind of cobblestone out there that can be used. Does have some grip out there, but need to be very wary of the track limits. Up the hill through Surtees, very, very awkward corner. Can't quite see the apex as it is both acute and blind uphill. Now we fly down to Pilgrim Strop before we get a touch of the brakes and a downshift for Hawthorne. Float the car nice and wide to the outside before we come and try and tuck it nice and close to the apex for Westfield. Then float it out wide for Dingledale before we once again bring it very, very nice and tight. Two tires on the grass as we come through Sheen. Now hard braking and using that camber on the inside through Sterling's. Two tires on the inside curb, floated out to the outside. Two tires on the outside curb. Now we do Clark curve. Very, very awkward. Kind of an early apex, then a late exit, then a very, very late apex as you come up the hill across the line. Devin Lingard actually cut through the track, able to set a 126, but Nate a 124.407, the time to beat for the AM field. Tycho Path good enough for P2. Manelli knocked down to P4, was P3. Sierra jumps up into P2. And multiple players that we have in that AM championship fight. Remember, there are 5 drivers that are within range of potentially, we will have to see how things shake out at the end of the night tonight, but potentially have the opportunity to be fighting for a championship next week at Paul Ricard. Manelli, Nate, Tycho Pass, Schwartz, and Sierra, those drivers who are really all within range of that championship. anything can happen. Manelli, Tycho Path, and Nate, the favorites. And Manelli, currently leading the championship, will have to try and do his best to bring the best time he can and try to defend that championship lead. If Nate is able to win tonight, would move him much closer to Manelli. If Manelli has a very poor night, that is not going to be very good for Manelli. Tycho Path finds half a second advantage over Nate, knocking Nate down to P2. Manelli currently P7, the championship leader, needs to find some time. Currently 1.4 seconds, right at 1.4 seconds, just 2 thousandths shy of that AM pole position. Needs to be as far ahead in the AM field as possible and cannot afford a mistake. A mistake tonight could very well knock Manelli not out of the fight for the championship, but out of the championship lead. Leclerc goes P2 in the Ferrari. I believe that is going to be an invalidation at Paddock Hill Bend, but we'll have a couple more opportunities for another flying lap. Tycho Path still out and chasing down the Mustang of Nate in the slipstream a bit as they come into Sterling's. We'll see if Nate has found any time on this lap. Tycho Path now letting off, building the gap to Nate just a bit. Maybe wanted to get outside of that dirty air. Nate did not improve. Tycho Path obviously did not improve on that lap, getting off the throttle. Just under 4 minutes left. We have about 3 more laps left in this qualifying session for the AM field. And our pro field is likely already starting to queue at the end of the pit lane. Prieto, the championship leader, at the front of the queue, ready to go. And Aramich, his top competitor, lines up next behind. Who is that just up ahead? It's not Guzman. That may be Phoenix, but don't need to worry about it right now. Manelli up to P2, just under a quarter of a second behind Tycho Path. And while Tycho Path does hold the AM pole for now, Manelli he's not going to let it be very easy to hold on to, that is for sure. If Manelli can find a bit more time, can either be right there on pace or possibly dethrone Tycho Path and take that pole position away. That would be the best case scenario for Manelli. Devin Lingard up into P3. We have seen a lot of improvement from Devin Lingard throughout this season. Did manage to get his first podium in AM last week. Same with Elmo. Elmo currently in P9, has a bit more time to find tonight, but can never count out any drivers in this AM field, especially here at a chaotic track like Brands Hatch. Not much room for movement and very, very conducive to argy-bargy. Tycho Path found a bit more time, about 4/10 more time, and now moves the goalpost a bit for Manelli as he's got a bit more work to do. Nate in P3, Devin Lingard down to P4, Leclerc down to P5, Sierra P7, Scroll P10. And has everyone in AM at least set one lap? Yes, they have. Tycho Path at 23.482. Scroll has jumped up into P2 now. Tycho Path wants to build up a gap. Lets Manelli go on by. Has the Ferrari of Nightwalker coming up behind next. Who was at the number 81 of Scroll. It's going to be an end to his qualifying session. Same with Michael D. Manelli finds P2 again. Tycho Path has a bit more work, needs to open up a bit more of a gap. Nightwalker up to P4, knocks Nate down to P5. Things are getting a bit dire for that championship fight. Did Tycho Path invalidate there? Yes, he did. Going to abandon the lap. Manelli out of Surtees, still on this lap. Does he have enough time in the car? Has he found enough delta to knock Tycho Path out of that pole position? He's not going to be able to get back around the track for another flying lap. It's got to be everything that he's got on this lap. Very, very close to invalidating on that run, and that is going to invalidate there at Dingle Dell, and Manelli will not be able to improve past P2. Just a few seconds away from the pros rolling out. It is Prieto. Who is that behind? That is the number... It's not the number 91 of Phoenix Gecko. It is one of the Ferraris, though. It was the 3 of Ouroboros with Aramich immediately behind. Do we have a bit of team strategy here in qualifying? The number 14 of Bradzilla going to be one of our last AM drivers to cross the line to finish their qualifying session. Tycho Path currently on pole. Brad moved up to P16. And the number 51 of Leclerc has invalidated this. Tycho Path on pole in AM. Can't quite see him, but he's there. With Manelli in P2, Scroll P3. Schwartz P4, Nightwalker P5, Nate P6, Devin Lingard P7, Sierra P8, Leclerc P9, Shoot Me P10, Peachy P11, Elmo P12, K P13, Mac Marbles P14, James L. Jones P15, Bradzilla P16, and Michael D P17. And that is 6 in a row for pole positions from Tycho Path in AM. Just has to be able to finish the race. Has been plagued by issues, not necessarily his own. Disconnections. I think disconnections have really been the majority of the driving force in knocking Tycho Path down in that fight. Prieto first across the line to get started with this pro qualifying. Next is Ouroboros, then Aramich. All eyes on Aramich. He is the sole driver who would possibly be able to steal the lead in this championship away from Prieto, and I don't think it would happen tonight, even if Prieto had a DNF. Aramich needs a win tonight, pretty much must win, and then we can start to do the calculations next week on what exactly it would take from Aramich to try and take that championship lead away from Prieto. But for the time being, Prieto sits firmly atop totem pole in the pro field. Prieto out of Sterling's, has just one more turn to go. We will see what the par time for the pro field will be up Clark's corner. Thank you for the raid, whatever fool. Welcome in, everybody. We are just live with qualifying for the penultimate round of GoFAST Racing Season 4 GT3. Prieto not on pole. It's the teammate of Ouroboros, 23.070 with the pro pole. Peach goes P2 or P3 overall. P2 among the pros. Tycho Path seated well into the pro field with that time, the right at 23.5. I can pull up the actual live timing. But Ouroboros on pole has taken it away from the teammate. And that teammate definitely needs everything he can get, has to defend the championship lead tonight because Aramich is hunting for it. Currently P7 in the Aston Martin here on home turf at Brands Hatch. 6 minutes left. Those of you who are just now coming in, qualifying here with GoFAST Racing is an absolute spectacle. And thank you for the follow, John. That is greatly appreciated. We're about to hit 510. Aramich will see if he's got any more time left in the bank, but currently pole held by the teammate of the championship leader of Ouroboros. Out of Clark and up the hill across the line. Prieto just a 100th of a second slower than the teammate. Aramich up to P4. TycoPath still seated well into the pro field. But it is currently an Animus Racing 1-2. And I can only imagine that Ouroboros would let Prieto go right on by to try and defend that pro championship lead. Just one more round to go next week at Paul Ricard. If Prieto can get a win tonight, it should all but seal it. Does not guarantee it, but it makes it very easy for Prieto. And again, we can start to do the math and see what exactly we will be looking at for championship percentage for wins and what exactly would need to be done, how the pieces need to be shuffled around for one driver or the other to take home trophy at the end of the night next Monday. Championship finale at Paul Ricard here, same time, same place, next week, next Monday. And will Prieto be able to hold on to it? And who is going to be the AM champion? 5 ways that AM championship fight could go. A big moment from Ouroboros coming up through Clark. Prieto goes on through. Does he find more time? No, he does not. Ouroboros goes back into the pit lane. We'll try and get a new fresh set of tires on that car, new quality fuel, and get back out there for another lap. But Aramich about half a second of time needed. We will see if he's got the time. Up through Druids and then down towards Graham Hill. Racing towards Surtees. Griffith goes P3 in the McLaren. One of the only McLarens to be up there in the top 5. Well, I guess TycoPath in AM. There are only 2 McLarens in the top 5. We'll see if Trixit is able to bring some improvement. Slapshot as well. 2 top talents in this league. And thank you for the subscription, TycoPath. I greatly appreciate it. And the Prime subscription, so it doesn't cost you anything on top of your Amazon Prime. If any of you have an Amazon Twitch Prime subscription, you'd like to use it, I'd greatly appreciate it. It helps me a lot, plus you get rid of ads. I try to structure the ads to where they're not run during the race at all. And so you guys also don't get pre-roll. Ouroboros back out. That is the 11 of Salinas that had just gone off the track. Does go back into the pit lane. Ouroboros and Prieto. Across the line, Ormiston, reigning champion, goes P6. We'll see if Ouroboros able to improve. In the 210 of Prieto, where has Prieto gone? No improvement for Ouroboros there. Does have a couple more opportunities to try and find that improvement. Prieto down Pilgrim's Drop. Aramich just a ways behind. The teammate to Aramich Trixit actually separating the 2 championship leaders. It is Ouroboros at 123.070 and Prieto 123.080. Aramich does have some time in Sector 2, but Prieto has more time in Sector 2. Prieto actually the quickest through Sector 2. Up the hill and across the line from Aramich, he will have really 2 more opportunities. Found some time, but wasn't quite enough. And Prieto did take that pole position back from the teammate at 123.037. From Prieto is now the time to beat. Just barely faster than the teammate, but it is faster. Good enough for pole. I don't think that Ouroboros will try to challenge it too much, but Ouroboros and Prieto, the 2 teammates, will try and at least put up the top times they can. Again, I don't think Ouroboros would take the race win away from the teammate. Prieto needs everything he can to try and hold Aramich at bay. And I can guarantee you that Aramich is going to be giving it everything that he has through Hawthorne and then through Westfield. No! Is Aramich going to have enough time to get back to the start-finish line? It's going to be very, very close. He had a few seconds in his pocket. But I don't think that Aramich will be able to make it back across the line. Prieto will have one more flying lap. And it will be very, very close for Aramich. He has 10 seconds. Is he 10 seconds away from the line, though? And into the pit lane, he's not going to go for an improvement. Prieto drops down into the 22s. Ouroboros still left in P2. Ormiston P7 will not improve. Aramich P4 will not improve. Peach P16 will not improve. The 222 of Stolowski P25. That's where he will stand. Salinas P13. The number 15 of Ricky Bobby in the Porsche across the line with Phoenix Gecko immediately behind. Ricky Bobby goes P21. Phoenix Gecko goes P4. Actually knocks Aramich down a peg. The 65. Sorry, that was the... Yes, it was the 65. No, it was the 55 of Zoanon, P41. As they come across the line, a bit hard to keep track of everybody. Platypus P17. Marvy P10. Who is that coming across next? Is Prieto just going to bring it into the pit lane? I don't see any reason why he wouldn't, but no, still going for another lap. Did he find more time? And yes, he did. In a show of force, knocks that pole time down a couple more hundredths of a second. And Trixit comes across the line in P7. It's Prieto on pole, and how they stand. Prieto, P1. Ouroboros, P2. Griffith, P3. Phoenix Gecko, P4. Aramich, P5. Ketu, P6. Trixit, P7. Tychopath, P8. Ormiston, P9. Giant, P10. Marvy, P11. Goose Slayer, P12. Your Mom, P13. Salinas, P14. Slapshot, P15. Peach, P16. Platypus, P17, Manelli P18, Brute P19, Scroll P20, Ricky Bobby P21, Schwartz P22, Nightwalker P23, Nate P24, Francisco P25, Devin Lingard P26, Stolowski P27, Sierra P28, Leclerc P29, Shuby P30, Autry P31, Guzman P32, Langley P33, Peachy P34, Elmo P35, Cabe P36, Mac Marbles P37, James L. Jones P38, Bradzilla P39, Michael D P40, Zoanon P41, and Dingham P42. And how they line up in AM: Tychopath P1, Manelli P2, Scroll P3, Schwartz P4, Nightwalker P5, Nate P6, Devin Lingard P7, Sierra P8, Leclerc P9, Shuby P10, Peachy P11, Elmo P12, K P13, Mac Marvels P14, James L. Jones P15, Bradzilla P16, and Michael D P17. Well, Prieto has done what he needed to do. He has put that NSX on pole. We'll see if he's able to keep it up there. Aramich, just a couple rows behind, is going to be on that inside line. We'll see if he's able to take advantage of it. And we will run a quick little ad spot. So we will be back during the formation lap. Some of you may be seeing ads, some of you may not, but I am going to disable the pre-roll for the duration of the race. Prieto on pole, and he's got his work pretty much done. He just needs to hold on to it for the time being, and we will see if he's able to stick it up there and stay up there. Prieto usually very, very good at getting out front, staying out front, especially with the teammate of Ouroboros, who is probably going to do everything that he can to block off that number 39 McLaren of Griffith and try and hold him back. The better that he does that, the more gap that he will give to Prieto. Prieto will be able to pull away Phoenix Gecko and Aramich. Phoenix Gecko, the newcomer, just a couple races into his GoFAST racing career, currently sitting in P4, with Aramich, who has all the work to do tonight in P5. We'll see what he is able to bring to the table, but he is definitely going to have his work cut out for him. Has to win tonight to try and put himself into a position to fight for that championship heading into the final round next week at Paul Ricard. Just about 30 seconds away from rolling, and we are just a few seconds away from engines fired. Thank you all for tuning in, by the way. Greatly appreciate every single one of you, and thank you to those who are tuned in on YouTube as well, as we are engines fired and about to be rolling. Welcome back. We are rolling with the formation lap. Prieto, Ouroboros, followed by Griffith, Phoenix Gecko, and Aramich. And again, all eyes on Aramich. If anyone has the chance to dethrone Prieto and try and steal that championship away, it will be Aramich. But as of right now, Prieto 4 cars ahead in a track that he has shown some unrivaled pace. Again, it is all sorts of work cut out for Aramich. Tychopath just needs to have a good race, is in a very, very good position to take home the win in AM. Doesn't really need to contend with the pro field around, can really let them do their own thing, as long as he doesn't lose too much time in doing so, but has a large buffer of pro drivers between himself and his top championship competitor of Manelli. Nate is also in that championship conversation, but a ways down in the AM field. Things are going to be a bit difficult for Nate. Does need to try and scrape together as good of a finish in AM as he can if he wants to have any chance of looking at a potential championship victory heading into the final round next week at Paul Ricard. It's all on Prieto to just do what he knows how to do. A win tonight would not secure it the championship heading into the final round, but it would be essentially putting the check in the envelope. A good finish next week would be the stamp on that check and putting it in the mail. Prieto, with a win tonight, puts himself in a very, very good position to take home the championship heading into the final round. And it is all eyes on Aramich to see if he is able to steal that win away. He has to steal that win away. Must win tonight for Aramich to put himself in the best position possible heading into the final round as we approach the start-finish line, awaiting the green flag. And green, 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 we are racing here at Brands Hatch, penultimate round of this championship. Phoenix Gecko, a bit of a wiggle coming down into Paddock Hill Bend. The rest of the field seems to be negotiating themselves nicely, but Aramich going up the inside of Phoenix will at least lock in one position. He has gone past Phoenix. They are side by side just behind, and that was Tychopath and Ormiston. Back in the AM field. Everyone trying to line up side by side as best they can. Claire side by side with who is that? That is Salinas in the Mustang. Mustang with that better top speed will pull out ahead. What has happened to Tychopath here? Has he gone down in positions very quickly? No, that is just Ormiston up the inside, Giant as well. And Tychopath trying to get out of the way. He'll let them go. Not his race to race, but who is that off? That was not Aramich. Was that Trixit? No, I don't think so. We had a few drivers off there. Prieto, all on his own, will lead the first lap of this race. Ouroboros, the teammate, immediately behind. Griffith was off. Phoenix Gecko up into P3. And yes, Aramich was involved. Does Aramich have damage? I believe he does. Yes, he does. It's going to be a strategy call for Aramich. Has damage to repair. And I think that was getting involved with Griffith there as well. And both of these drivers going to be very far down the order. Salinas getting involved, has some damage. Well, as of right now, everything going in Prieto's favor, and Tychopath as well. Manelli with more of the AM field behind Nightwalker. Just one car separating, that is the Porsche of Stolowski, then Leclerc. Scroll, Schwartz, and Nate have a few AM drivers between themselves and some good points scoring tonight. But for now, it is looking to be the Prieto show, and Phoenix Gecko on the podium. See if he is able to bring home his first podium in Pro. And I believe it would be his first podium with GoFAST Racing. Currently trying to chase down the very, very quick Ouroboros. Aramich just now rolling out of the pit lane, is going to go down one lap and will be in the midst of the traffic. We'll see where he comes out. They do get a notification of a car exiting the pit lane, but now it is head down from Aramich. It's not over, but it's just going to be a lot harder from here on out. We'll see if Aramich can do it. Is that Aramich allowing the field to go by? Yes, I believe it is. He is getting a blue flag. Yes, he is allowing the field to go on through. Salinas quite a ways up ahead. I believe he had less damage. And maybe Aramich just trying to make sure that the fuel and everything is calculated correctly for the end of this race, as he is going to be on a one-stop. Everyone will be on a one-stop, but Aramich has to go a long way on those tires, much longer than anyone else will have to. Phoenix Gecko with the fastest lap of the race, but no, off and into the barriers. It seems to be a light touch heading into Sterling's, but that is going to drop him off the podium. Very easy to run wide there at the exit of Sheen, as you are absolutely on the limit. Two tires in the dirt across the inside apex, and you can go two tires pretty much onto the outside dirt. There is some cobble outside that does count as track. And I think Phoenix just went a touch past that limit. Tight runnings here. Stolowski wants to go for a move on Manelli. He's up the inside. Side by side, not quite going to happen. Now Manelli defensive. The 12 of Nightwalker wanted to get in on that action, but no, it is going to be side by side with Leclerc as they come down Graham Hill. Down through Cooper as we head up into Surtees. Manelli still at the front of this bunch, currently holding on to P2 in AM. Cannot sacrifice any positions in this AM field. He needs everything he can to defend that championship lead. Currently a long way to go to the AM leader of Tychopath, who is also in the midst of a battle on his own. running right behind Giant with Platypus immediately behind. It's a bit of a rough place for the AM driver. Likely looking at a promotion to Pro next season, but wants to take the AM championship with him. Tight fight between himself, Manelli, and Nate. We'll see what kind of points Nate can bring together tonight as well. Ormiston trying to chase down Phoenix Gecko. Phoenix, the newcomer, has actually gone back up to P5 and may have a bit more pace than Ormiston. Did out-qualify him, but Ormiston, the reigning champion, never a slouch, can never count him out of that fight. Aramich back into the pit lane. And I think there may have been an issue with the pit stop, but that is absolutely heartbreaking for Aramich, as I think his championship hopes may be dashed after that incident. And Prieto may be riding off with that championship, may have the clinch tonight. Nothing is certain until we get to the final round. There are drop rounds to be calculated, which also always complicate things. Marby in the BMW chasing down Francisco and Ricky Bobby. Pro Platypus with Tycho Path behind. Tycho Path has the Slap Your Mom Racing teammates, both of those McLarens, hard charging up behind, and I don't think the Tycho Path would be too keen on being incredibly defensive with them. Aramich, are you good, or are you parked for the night? Platypus very, very close to the rear end of Giant there, coming down Graham Hill up into Surtees. We'll see if Platypus able to find a way. We have seen these two fighting quite a bit throughout this season. Let's go on board with Platypus chasing the Mustang into the night down Pilgrim's Drop, trying to carry as much speed as possible through Hawthorns. Bit of a wiggle, some sliding from the rear tires of that Mustang up ahead. Absolutely on the limit, these two drivers. Down through Sheen, Platypus gets a better run. Giant misses the apex and is going to relinquish the position to Platypus. Tycho Path, along with the Slap Your Mom Racing teammates, making this a bit of a tight pack. No one really left behind, but from P8 all the way back to what I believe is P13. I think that's 6 cars all bunched up here into one spot. We do have an incident a bit further behind involving the 424. Who is in that 424? Why can't I find it? I think I'm just going right over it. Autry into the pit lane. That's the 424 of James Earl Jones, trying to get that Mustang righted. A bit of damage will likely be coming into the pit lane. Well, very unfortunate to hear, Aramich, but I don't think it's over yet. The drop rounds still need to be calculated. And while I'm sure you've already done the math, we'll at least be hopeful that we still have a bit of a championship fight heading into the final round. And Platypus back off will give that position right back, and is actually going to fall back into the rear of this pack. We have actually picked up a couple more. Platypus will fall back in with the Porsche of Brute, actually just, of Peach. Brute actually just up ahead in the Porsche. A lot of sparks coming from those McLarens up ahead, but Giant now back up in the front of this field. Tycho Path right in the middle of this fight, but in the lead in AM. I can only think he's, you know, guys, I'm quick enough to be up here, but please, please, please don't get me involved in some sort of incident. Just want to bring home the win in AM. Do the best I can to put myself in the best position for the championship run next week at Paul Ricard. Prieto and Ouroboros just lapping all on their own, a little bit further behind. Ketu in the NSX now chasing and closing up to the rear of Trixit. This may be a battle for the podium. See if Ketu, how close he is able to get. Up through Clark and across the line. Now Paddock Hillbin, the NSX, still trying to close up as much as possible. A bit of a mistake from Trixit, I think, or just a bit of an alternative line. Didn't really close the gap up very much there, as the gap stays steady. Back on with this pack of pros with the AM leader right in the midst of it. Slap Your Mom teammates still trying to find a way past. And Brute with Peach has Platypus come into the pit lane. No, Platypus all the way down to P23. I think there may have been another incident. Does he have damage on the front of that Mercedes? I don't really see much, but very far down the order from when we last checked in. And is that another incident there? Back on with the 21. No, everyone keeping it nice and tidy. Psychopath being pushed by Your Mom. Your Mom is all over Psychopath. Up through Clark. It is just close between all of these drivers up here, right around the top 10. Francisco. That is not the Ferrari of Manelli there. That is the 81 of Scroll, who is on a different pit strategy. Manelli goes on by. No, Manelli and Scroll make contact. Manelli gives the position back, but this is not good for Manelli. Needs to do everything he can to hold on to that AM championship. And while he's not really going to lose many positions, really only going to lose 2 in class, it's not going to make things any easier for him. Ketu still trying to chase down Trixit, but what has happened to Prieto? A bit of a mistake. And now Prieto out of the lead. And back in what I believe is going to be P4. Ouroboros holds the lead, and is Phoenix going to apply pressure to the championship leader? Phoenix isn't racing for a championship here, he's racing for a podium, and right now Prieto is the next obstacle in the way of that goal. We'll see if Phoenix is able to find a way past our championship leader, but an odd mistake, a very rare mistake from Prieto. Does make things slightly interesting. Does shave a few points away from Prieto, at least for the time being. Can't rule him out for not winning this race. It's still very much possible with the skill that Prieto has. Now, dropped back away. The next car ahead is going to be the 86 of Trixit, who we see just in the background. As now we are on board with Trixit, and we see the battle between Phoenix and Prieto just in the background. Ketu has made it past Trixit up into P2 as well. Now going to try and run down the leader of Ouroboros as we are approaching the halfway point of this race. Tychopath, the AM leader, holding his ground, not letting the Slap Your Mom teammates go by. Just holding them up for the time being. Nelly in a bit of no man's land, does have Devin Lingard behind, Nate behind as well. And Nate, again, one of those drivers who needs to score as many points as possible tonight to put himself in the best position heading into the final round if he wants to have any semblance of a chance at fighting for that AM championship. Same with Sierra, who is immediately behind. It is not over yet. Who is that that's gone off? It is Devin Lingard, and that is going to shake things up a bit and makes contact with the BMW. Was that the BMW of Shuby? Yes, it was, but immediately gets corrected, and I think maybe a, hey man, what was that? Oh, thank you. Between those two. What could have been very bad, immediately corrected. It's just water under the bridge now. In P2 with the McLaren of Griffith right behind. Schwartz in P3, Manelli in P4 in AM, Nate P5, and Sierra P6. I believe that is Shuby P7. Peach comes into the pit lane. Going to be one of our first on a regularly scheduled pit stop, and we do have a few drivers who are parked in the pit lane, have retired the cars for the night. Is that Michael D coming in for a scheduled pit stop? It may be Goose Slayer as well. We'll see if they come off Jackson back out onto the tarmac. Shuby, sorry, not Shuby, that is just Peach getting dropped down the order. Ormiston has gone into the pit lane, and is Ormiston done? I believe. Could very well be. See if Goose Slayer comes out. Peach off the jacks and rolling. Phoenix Gecko still holding on to the rear of Prieto, not letting him run away, and still well within that slipstream range, whereas they come down the straightaways, able to close up just a bit. Prieto, they are coming up to the lap traffic of Salinas. Prieto just needs to catch Trixit and Ketu, which is not going to be the easiest feat. And Francisco off the track on the straight just past Sterling's will re-enter the track, but the majority of the field going on by. They do get the yellow flag notification. Giant comes into the pit lane. Manelli comes into the pit lane. Ricky Bobby comes into the pit lane. We've got another round of pit stops coming in. Francisco now comes into the pit lane after that spin. Does have a bit of damage on that BMW. We'll see if he repairs it. Peach, who has already come into the pit lane. Giant already rolling out though, so Peach not going to gain any positions on Giant there. Really not going to gain any. The 33 of Devin Lingard around backwards at Druids. Drop down a few positions down past the 969 of Guzman. Phoenix still chasing down Prieto and actually gaining, holding a gap but gaining through sector 3 here. What is the gap as they cross the line? Just over 3/10. Do have some cars coming out of the pit lane, which will pull them off of the racing line slightly. And some racing back behind between Ricky Bobby and who is that? Is that the 11 of Salinas? Yes, it is. So not a race for position, or maybe a race for position. We'll have to see at the next timing line. Salinas looks to lock himself in ahead. Griffith comes into the pit lane. Same with Schwartz in the Aston Martin. The 14 around backwards, that is Brad Zilla at Surtees. Now gets the go-ahead to rejoin the circuit. Devin Lingard into the pit lane, Langley in the pit lane, Schwartz and Griffith. I think Devin Lingard may have missed the pit box there, had to throw it in reverse, but all good now. Trixit, who is that behind? Trixit dives into the pit lane. Prieto will assume P3 once again. I thought Trixit may have lost it into the pit lane, but no, that is just him making his way through the chicane at the pit lane entry. Prieto now to chase down the sister NSX. See if he can get P2 back, and if he can get all the way up to P2, I don't see any reason why Ouroboros wouldn't give him back the race lead. Trixit into the pit lane, your mom in the pit lane, Leclerc in the pit lane. Slapshot has stayed out, and that looks to be Devin Lingard rolling out of the pit lane. Giant does lead the field of cars who have come into the pit lane. We'll see how that changes with this next batch of pit stops. Shuby into the pit lane, Sierra into the pit lane. That was Brad Zilla coming in, and I think Goose Slayer still sitting in the pit lane. Platypus comes into the pit lane with a touch of damage on that Mercedes. And Trixit now out of the pit lane, will now be the furthest ahead driver who has completed a pit stop. Battle between Brute and Slapshot here for P6. We'll see when either of these drivers come into the pit lane. Yes, the tire change is mandatory if you want the start to count. So yes, you do have to come in and take tires. Next season could possibly be looking at the splash and dash, no tires needed, or actually I'm not 100% sure. I think you may just need to come in. Tires may not be mandatory. The championship leader of Prieto comes in P8. I think you can splash and dash, but it's not going to help you at all. The correct strategy is going to come in and take the tires. You will be that much slower on old tires. So there is no one who is going to come in and splash and dash. The only alternative strategy that you would really see is going to be either staying late or coming in very early. Nate in the Mustang comes into the pit lane as the championship leader just rolls out of the pit lane and comes out just ahead of Trixit. Trixit seems to have gained a good bit of time in the pit lane there. I believe that is also the Ferrari of Devin Lingard. Both of these drivers trying to cautiously give each other space, and I think both ended up giving each other quite a bit of space. Ouroboros, the race leader, comes into the pit lane. We'll see if anyone else follows. Ketu stays out in the NSX. Phoenix Gecko stays out. Tychopath, the current AM leader and P4 overall, is going to stay out. Manelli, the AM contender, currently AM championship leader, as Tychopath is trying to take that AM championship away. Brute into the pit lane, Marvy in the pit lane. Stolowski gets promoted up a position. Prieto still the furthest ahead for those drivers who have completed their pit stop. The 55 of Zoanam just rolled out of the pit lane, and Ouroboros rolling out of the pit lane next as well. I believe that will put Prieto immediately behind, but we will have to see how Ketu, Phoenix Gecko, and even Tychopath line up whenever they do come in for their pit stop eventually. Don't need to come in yet, and Ketu going long. We'll see if he comes in at the end of this lap. And yes, we'll pull into the right-hand side. Get the car slowed down through the chicane. Phoenix Gecko will follow behind as well. And Ouroboros just now heading through Pilgrim's Drop. We'll see exactly how that strategy has played out for Ketu and Phoenix. They weren't far behind each other. Still running good pace. A few cars between Prieto and his teammate, but currently P1 and P2 if you count those drivers who have come in and cleared their pit stop. We'll have to see when Ketu gets off the jacks and rolling. Ouroboros just coming out of Sterling's. Was the race leader, pit from the lead, let Ketu have it. And Ketu is off the jacks and rolling, but is it going to be enough? Has a ways to go to get to the end of the pit lane, and no, it is not. Ouroboros is going to go on by, will resume the lead in this race, at least based on merit. Who is that off and into the gravel? I believe that is the 81 of Scroll. Yes, it was. And a return to the pit lane, which is a bit odd. Phoenix Gecko off the jacks and out. Slapshot off the jacks and out. The Peachy missed the pit box. Had to throw it in reverse and get it parked. Dingham into the pit lane as well, and Cave into the pit lane. We do have two stragglers though, and those two stragglers are the AM race leader of Tycho Path and the Porsche of Stolowski. Tycho Path, I think, just taking advantage of clean track and clean running. No real need to go into the pit lane just yet. He's all out in front on his own, and I think he just wants to run with the clean traffic as long as he can. The Porsche of Stolowski around backwards at Sterling's. Tries to get it turned back around, but ends up spinning once again, and it is going to be an entrance into the pit lane for Stolowski. The 333 of Cave just rolling out of the pit lane. Tricks it, chasing it down Prieto, but Prieto currently in P3 after Tycho Path comes into the pit lane to serve that pit stop. Stolowski going to be dropped down the order a good ways. Manelli currently in P3, but does have Schwartz immediately behind. Nate needs to grab a few more positions for those crucial points in the championship. We'll see if he's able to do so. As of right now, it is definitely looking to be between Manelli and Tycho Path heading into the final round. Tycho Path does finally come into the pit lane. We'll see where he comes out as the leaders go on by. Nightwalker and Shuby pretty much bumper to bumper. And Nightwalker makes a bit of a mistake coming out of Surtees. Is that going to give a run to Shuby? Yes, it is. They will be side by side coming into Hawthorne. Shuby actually able to clear by the time they come back up the hill out of Pilgrim's Drop. And Shuby locks in the position. Nate with a bit of connection issue, but I think everything is okay for him there. Just a bit of a high ping. It was Brute chasing down Slapshot. It's now Brute ahead of Slapshot, and is now going to try and chase down the second of the Slap Your Mom teammates. We'll see if he'll be able to catch him. Ricky Bobby with a bit of a group behind, and that is Manelli and Schwartz. fighting for the final spot of the AM podium. Manelli forced to go a touch wide. Schwartz wants to lock into the slipstream behind. Griffith has a front row seat to this fight. As we come up the hill and into Hawthorne's, Manelli has the inside. Schwartz forced to relinquish the track position, and Griffith ultimately takes advantage. And Griffith slots in ahead. But no, they make contact behind. Schwartz contact with Griffith. And now Griffith is going to lose a few positions. And honestly, that has played perfectly into Manelli's hand, as Manelli now relinquishes himself of the pressure of those two behind and can now focus on trying to gain on the Ferrari of Leclerc for P2. Speaking of Leclerc, in a bit of a battle between himself and Salinas. Coming out of Cooper, I think Salinas is pulling away slightly. Battle here between Peach and your mom, as your mom is trying to catch up to Peach. Brute in the Porsche also trying to catch up to your mom, not far behind. Heavy championship implications in this race, both for good and bad, regardless of who you support or who you are. If you are a driver rewatching the broadcast, heavy championship implications throughout this race tonight. Nightwalker actually getting our first penalty of the night, a drive-through penalty for track limits. And the 35 of Shuby off the track at Sterling's does get it righted and pointed the correct direction, and now rolling. Mom all over the rear of, who's that, Peach in the 334. Definitely gaining time in closing, but just unable to find a way past. We'll see if he can maneuver around the Porsche as they come up the hill into Clark Corner. It's not going to happen there. The Porsche rotation and acceleration much better than the McLaren, as long as the Porsche has the tires to support it. Down Paddock Hill Bend, looking for the inside apex, and a big splash of sparks from the Mustang of Giant up ahead, who has now been caught by Peach in this fight. I think Giant may have made a touch of a mistake, but it's now 3 cars involved in this fight for position. Also going to keep an eye on the delta between Prieto and Ketu. Peach wanted to feign the move on Giant into Surtees. The pressure has definitely been applied. 1, 2, 3, they go. Giant pulling all the way to the inside, does not want either driver to take advantage with the slipstream, which being in the Mustang, not many cars will be able to contend with that top speed, especially down that downhill section. But when we get into the technical sector, mostly here through Sector 3, when things start to change a bit, especially down through Sterling's. You saw Giant went very, very wide. That is going to allow Peach to go side by side up the inside. And they are door to door up Clark Corner. Which way does your mom go? Does he want to thread the needle? Does he want to go up the inside of both of them? Wants to go around the outside for the faster line down in. Will he find the way around the outside of Peach? Peach gets too much of the inside curb. Your mom does have to take evasive action, and now up the inside and elbows out as Peach has been demoted a few positions. Now Brute has pulled his way into this fight, and it is a Porsche on Porsche battle. A bit of friendly fire, they make contact, and Brute forced off the track. I think that is just a bit of a racing incident there, but the stewards will be looking at it, and now Brute with dirty tires and just a bit shaken up goes off the racing line and will drop back a few positions. It's not over yet though. Peach is right back in the midst of it, and up the inside of Your Mom at Hawthorne, side by side racing. They keep it going. Does Peach have the inside at Westfield? Yes, he does. Does he take it? Yes, he does. Your Mom forced around the outside now through Dingle Dell. The quick corners, apex to apex to apex, now through Sheen. We have got some racing here. It's very late for it. Better late than never out of Sterling's. It is Peach ahead of Your Mom, ahead of Brute. 1, 2, 3, they're nearly all touching, pushing each other. You'd think it was MX5 Cup the way they were pushing themselves up the hill. It is, well, it was Giant up ahead, still is Giant up ahead. Peach, Your Mom, Brute, Slapshot. These four all within 1 second of each other, really. Peach now trying to take the clean air that he's got as he is now in the lead of this group and trying to run away from the McLaren of Your Mom. Brute wants to follow suit. Surprisingly enough, Brute got right back into this fight, and Slapshot bringing up the rear. May want to take advantage of whatever he can. Up around Surtees. Going to be a bit of a weak spot for the Porsche, rear-weighted uphill. It's just everything against the Porsche, but more so in favor of the McLaren with that mid-engine platform as we come up Pilgrim's Drop and around Hawthorne once again. Now the McLaren all over the rear of the Porsche, dives to the inside. Peach doesn't take the bait though. And Your Mom again trying to find whatever time he can, whatever momentum. Down through Dingledale and then into Sheen. I think Peach missed the apex a touch there. Down into Sterling's. Your Mom not close enough for the move. But he's all over the rear. We continue one more lap as they are just about pushing each other towards Clark Corner. The 33, I believe that is the 33 of Devin Lingard off at Sterling's. Yes, it is. Devin Lingard just not having the best of nights tonight. Brute goes past Your Mom and now puts the teammates back beside each other, and it's Porsche's ahead of McLaren's. Just a few minutes left in this race, but this is when they decided to light it up. Also keep that eye on Prieto. He is chasing the NSX of Ketu, and you can see Prieto just in the background there in the sister NSX. We'll see if Prieto is able to catch up to Ketu, and if Prieto is able to catch and get past Ketu, who has a bit of an incident there, has to avoid the McLaren, and who is in that McLaren going slowly. I believe that is the, it's not the 969, but the 969 is off the track. Regardless, it was one of the McLarens. It's Porsche versus Porsche at the front of this pack now. Two McLarens giving chase. This is just a battle for P8, or P7 really. They've since dropped the 221 of Giant a long time ago. And Your Mom goes deep, way too deep, off into the sand trap. Slapshot will move back up ahead. And is Your Mom going to lose another position? That is actually the AM leader of Tychopath, who has just been cruising throughout this race and is not really under any threat whatsoever in that AM lead, just needs to bring it home. Peach, Brute, Slapshot now the 3 in this fight, but it's really a one-on-one between Peach and Brute. Two drivers in equal machinery. We'll see who's the better of the bunch. Up through Hawthorne's, Brute has the target, which you can say in a bit of a psychological mindset does give you the advantage. You have something to strive for. Peach has to drive looking in the rearview mirror, has to try and keep the Porsche of Brute behind. And no, Brute goes around, and that is going to take Brute right out of that fight. He does have an opening as long as he can get the car started up in time. Yes, he will, and rejoin, but no, a bit too much of the throttle and goes around. And now that leaves Peach all on his own at the front. Not the front of the field, but the front of that battle. Prieto getting closer to less than a second behind Ketu. And it makes you think, if Prieto can get past Ketu, does Ouroboros slow down and give the race win to Prieto to help his chances in clinching the championship at the end of the night? The unfortunate incident from Aramich today, or the unfortunate incident that Aramich was involved in, it has not entirely removed Aramich. We'll have to look at the race, or the championship standings at the end of the night. But it is not going to be easy for Aramich heading into the final round. Number 30 McLaren, that was Peachy, off. I believe the 34 McLaren of Dingham has actually just come back into the pit lane. Saw it drop off the jacks. I thought he was about to get rolling, but I guess not. Ketu, with some lap traffic, forced to go off the racing line. How does that affect this battle? Does it help Prieto quite a bit? That gap at the last timing line was right around 0.6 of a second. I think it may have grown, but we shall see. As they come across the Sector 2 timing line, yes, it has grown by about 0.3, but Prieto is there. Dylan Lingard off again. I think he may have some issues with that car. 10 versus the 210. Ketu versus Prieto. This is Prieto trying to just gather as many points as he can heading into the final round of this season next week at Paul Ricard. Across the line, how does the gap change? Right at 1 second flat. A bit further behind. In the McLarens, your mom and Tycho Path again. Tycho Path, the AM leader. The number 90, I believe that is the 90 of Michael D. Off the track at Sheen. 555 of Manelli with Schwartz in the 99 behind. This is a battle for P3 in the AM field. On 2 Wheels for Life, thank you for the subscription. Greatly appreciate it. And side by side across the line, Manelli and Schwartz. Is Schwartz going to be able to set up the cut up the inside? No, he is not. It is the Porsche, I believe, of Zoanam that came out just in the middle of these two. Again, 2 Wheels, thank you for the subscription. Ouroboros has put us on the final lap of this race. Ketu versus Prieto. We'll see if Prieto is able to get those P2 points. If he can catch the NSX. Who is that off behind? That is the 33 of Devin Lingard. I believe he does have an issue with that car. And Manelli versus Schwartz. Schwartz trying to find everything that he can. They will have this lap and one more to battle it out. Down through Shane. Manelli still trying to defend the best he can. I will keep an eye on the delta between Ketu and Prieto. Schwartz wants to get a run around Clark Corner. He's later on the brakes. They're side by side. Manelli up the inside, 2 tires in the dirt. And Manelli has to come into the pit lane. Does he not have enough fuel to finish the race? And how is that going to affect the AM Championship, as he is definitely going to be losing some points? His competitors in AM are not that far behind. Ouroboros, all on his own at the front, comes across the line to take the checkered flag and to bring another win to the Animus Racing Pacifica team. Ketu will bring home P2. Prieto, your championship leader, will bring home P3. I don't think he's clinched yet, but he is one step closer. Prieto looking very good. Very good potential at being your next champion. Tricks at P4. Phoenix Gecko, P5. Giant looks to come across the line at P6. Manelli has secured P2 in AM. What has actually, no, he is not. Sorry, he is way further behind because he did have to come into the pit lane. Giant P6, Peach, P7, Slapshot, P8, Your Mom, P9, Tychopath takes home the win in AM. And P10 overall. Tychopath wants to set up himself for the best chances in that AM championship. Brute, P11, Marby, P12, Salinas, P13. Leclerc takes home P2 in AM, P14 overall. Ricky Bobby, P15. And Schwartz will take home P3 in AM, P16 overall. Griffith, P17. Nate, P18, P4 in AM. And Sierra looks to bring home P9. He has actually just gone past the number 21 of Platypus. And Sierra P19 across the line. Platypus P20. It's Ouroboros taking home the checkered flag. Ouroboros P1, Ketu P2, Prieto P3. That is your overall podium. And in AM, Tychopath, Leclerc, and Schwartz. We will have to look and see what it looks like heading into the final round. When the points are all tallied and calculated, then we can start to do the calculations and plan the hypotheticals. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Another great stream and one more race away from rounding out another season here with GoFAST Racing. As always, please consider subscribing to the Twitch. It helps me out a lot. I try not to run ads, or run as little ads as possible, so the best way to support me is going to be through that Twitch Prime subscription, especially if you have Amazon Prime. Doesn't cost you anything. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you'd like to watch the races on TV, you can always do so on the Retrovex YouTube channel, and maybe we'll get some more shorts and things up there as well. Thank you all for tuning in. Stick around. We are going to find someone to raid. Whatever fool did raid us earlier, so we're not going to be raiding them. But again, thank you all for tuning in. And let's go ahead and raid Usneko. Again, thank you all for tuning in, and it looks like they are doing a race in a Mustang at Spa. So thank you all for tuning in, and have a good night.